and huge silver fishes roamed the skies. The Shenandoah, the Akron, the Los Angeles. To those ships, Rosendahl devoted his life. Hailed as a hero, he was later rejected as a dreamer because of his faith in airships. But in the end, his faith was justified. The story begins at Annapolis after the First World War. Rosendahl was an instructor, known chiefly as a scholar. The sight of an early dirigible transformed him into a man of action. She was beautiful but dangerous. Several of her sister ships had exploded, killing their crews. But Rosendahl volunteered for airship service. He had fallen in love at first sight. As part of his airship training, he observed the construction of the new dirigibles, the Los Angeles and the Shenandoah. A bachelor, he gave to his new love the devotion that other men gave to wives and families. He studied the gases with which dirigibles were inflated. Helium was safe, hydrogen treacherous. By now, Rosendahl was an airship man, body and soul. He rode in balloons to learn airship control and navigation. Then, with training completed, he was ready for service on the Sky Giants. 1924. The German-built Los Angeles was ready for delivery to the United States. Among the Americans who would fly her across the Atlantic Ocean was Charles Rosendahl. It was his first important airship voyage. Majestically, she soared over Europe. Rosendahl was worried, but not for himself. If the Los Angeles went down, the future of airships would crash with her. But she arrived safely at Lakehurst Naval Air Station. The golden age of airships had begun. It was the first coast-to-coast flight by an airship. The first airmail flight across the ocean. A goodwill tour to promote public confidence in dirigibles. Rosendahl was navigation officer of the Shenandoah. That flight was the turning point of his career, but it came at a terrible cost. The big silverfish was over Ohio when she ran into a heavy storm. On the ground, farmers could hear her engines laboring in the gale. High above, Rosendahl and his comrades fought to save their ship. But they failed. The Shenandoah had broken in half, carrying 14 men to death. Rosendahl managed to land without injury. He was the senior surviving officer of the disaster. In spite of the tragedy, your devotion to airships didn't falter. You defended them against the critics. Disaster, you said, was the price of progress. You were given command of the Los Angeles. This was the chance you had been praying for. The chance to prove to the critics that airships were superior to airplanes in every way. You would use the Los Angeles to restore public confidence, which had been shattered by the crash of the Shenandoah. To capture the imagination and support of the public, you performed spectacular stunts. You launched a glider from the belly of the Los Angeles. You wanted to show that dirigibles in time of war could carry fighter planes far beyond their own range into enemy territory. Then the most sensational stunt of all. You wanted to prove that dirigibles could be landed on aircraft carriers. The carrier Saratoga was chosen for the experiment. You knew the risks. A mishap would cost hundreds of lives and millions of dollars. But success might bring new appropriations by Congress for the building of more dirigibles. You didn't. For the first time, a dirigible had been landed on an aircraft carrier. That operation made you a national hero. Fame meant nothing to you. Your only concern was the future of airships. But there were rumors that the big brass, resenting the publicity you received, would shift you to desk duty. If true, that would just about break your heart. Berlin, 1928. The Graf Zeppelin was about to make her maiden voyage to the United States. Ignoring reports that he was slated for desk duty, Commander Rosendahl went to Germany to take part in the flight. The Graf Zeppelin was the largest and most modern dirigible in the world. With her, Germany took the lead in the airship field. Flying across the ocean in the Graf Zeppelin, Rosendahl was professionally envious. Why didn't the United States build even greater airships? Why didn't we take advantage of our monopoly of helium, the safe inflating gas? But his love for the Sky Giants was completely unselfish. He was delighted when the Graf Zeppelin arrived at Lakehurst. The voyage he felt had proven the value of dirigibles as commercial passenger carriers. He went back to his own ship, the Los Angeles. It was a brief reunion. The rumors apparently had been based on facts. Rosendahl was grounded in Washington. Because of his devotion to airships, he had never married. He had given up home and family, the things most men strive for. Now he was tied to a desk at the Navy Department. There was a slim ray of hope. A new airship, the Akron, was under construction. Her builders wanted Rosendahl to command the ship during her precarious test flights. Rosendahl yearned for that command. In the end, he got it. For him, it was a last-minute reprieve. Happily, he left Washington. Step by step, he supervised the completion of the Akron. When she was nearly finished,
there's been a great deal of progress made since I was here the last time, and I hope the rate keeps up, because we're very anxious to fly the ship as soon as possible.
In 1931, you took the Akron up for her test flights. She was a ship to be proud of. In size and power, she dwarfed any airship then in existence, even the Graf Zeppelin. You were overjoyed to be back in the air after those weary months at a desk. And elated, because with the Akron, the United States gained supremacy in airships. She was a battleship of the sky. Her tests completed, you reported.
The trip of the Akron across the continent from Lakehurst to the Pacific coast put the ship through a variety of severe tests. We had to contend with practically every form of severe and unfavorable flying conditions, including fog, rain, high winds, zero visibility, thunderstorms, and even sandstorms. We even had a few hours of good weather. The ship responded beautifully to all these situations, and in my opinion is an excellent airship.
A year later, you said goodbye to the Akron and her crew, up for promotion. But first you must serve a tour of duty with the surface fleet. You shook hands all around and left for sea duty on a battleship. You weren't cut out for sea duty. Your place was with the Sky Giants. As soon as your promotion went through, you would take command of the Akron's sister ship, the Macon, or so you thought. But then, the Akron crashed into the ocean. 2 years later, the Macon went down. Those disasters wiped out all that Rosendahl had accomplished to promote public confidence in airships. But Rosendahl didn't lose faith. Undiscouraged, he took command of the Naval Air Station at Lakehurst. His faith was sustained by the newest and greatest of the Sky Giants, the German Zeppelin Hindenburg. Rosendahl cited her record of safe Atlantic crossings and pleaded with Congress to build more dirigibles. Then came a day in May of 1937. The Hindenburg had reached Lakehurst after a voyage from Germany. Rosendahl was on the field to welcome her. Suddenly he saw a person out of the ship. In a moment it was beyond control. The Hindenburg became a roaring mass of flames as her hydrogen gas ignited. Passengers and crewmen leaped from the windows. Rosendahl was helpless. He could only watch as the blazing mass settled to the ground. In 20 seconds, 35 people lost their lives. Aviation's worst tragedy today. It sounded the death knell of dirigibles in the United States. The Los Angeles, last of America's airships, was grounded. The public was horrified by the Hindenburg tragedy. Dirigibles were denounced as flaming torches and death traps. Again, you sprang to the defense of the great silver fishes you loved. You pleaded and argued. No danger of fire in American dirigibles. They used helium, which was non-inflammable. It was all in vain. 1938, you were transferred to Seaview. The effort and sacrifice of a lifetime canceled out in a single day. America's greatest airshipman on the cruiser Milwaukee. You hated the steel decks and the heaving ocean. You yearned for the Sky Giants and the free reaches of the upper air. But America had rejected airships. Alone and lonely, you retreated into your shell. When the Second World War came, you were all but forgotten. 1942, the Battle of the Atlantic was underway. A grim struggle for national survival. But convoys must go through. German submarines took an enormous toll of Allied merchant ships. Patrol planes did their best, but it wasn't good enough. Blimps were needed, and someone to train their crews. No one was better fitted for that job than Charles Rosendahl. Soon his blimps patrolled the convoy routes, acting as the eyes of the Navy. A rear admiral when the war ended, Rosendahl was decorated in recognition of his service. The Distinguished Flying Cross and the Distinguished Service Medal. But what were medals to a man who had dedicated his life to an ideal? In Rosendahl, the old faith burned as bright as ever. In youth, he had pledged himself to the great silver ships. And now in old age, he still believed the future of air travel was with the sky giants. Charles E. Rosendahl, a dreamer, a visionary, another prophet gone unheeded, the future holds the answer.